how to immerse yourself in the Japanese language. The more you surround yourself with the Japanese language, the faster you will learn. Instead of just dabbling in the language once in a while, being surrounded by it on a daily basis will more easily allow you to remember new things. This goes for beginners as well. Even though you might not understand a lot of Japanese, the structures and words that form the basis of the language are covered in most material geared towards beginners. This means that you will see structures and words repeated over and over again. There's a limit to how much you can immerse yourself in Japanese, of course. If you're working full-time, you won't have as much time available as someone who studies Japanese at university, for example. Motivation also plays a large part. The more motivated you are, the easier it is to take on a lot. This can be self-reinforcing because the more you do, the faster you'll learn, and the faster you learn, the more motivated you will be up to a point. But the fact remains that forward momentum can be self-reinforcing, and immersing yourself in the Japanese language can help with that. So how do you immerse yourself in the Japanese language then? The easiest way of becoming immersed in Japanese culture and language is, of course, to go to Japan.
No problem.
But just because you go to Japan and are surrounded by Japanese things doesn't necessarily mean that you will get better at Japanese. You need to interact with the language and culture for that to happen. What can easily happen is that you find a group of foreigners and end up hanging out with them instead. If that happens, then there's not that much point in coming to Japan to learn Japanese in the first place.
チャンネル登録とグッドボタンよろしくお願いします。
To avoid this, it's best to come prepared. If you already know a little Japanese and you've read up on Japanese culture, it will be much easier to fit in. Often the people you meet in the first few weeks of your stay are the ones you will hang out with the most. So try to make as many Japanese friends as you can. Always pay attention to the language you speak. If you start speaking to someone in English, you will most likely continue to do that going forward. That's why speaking to Japanese people who aren't that great at English can be a blessing in disguise. This will force you to try to speak Japanese even if you're not that confident in your speaking ability yet. For most people learning Japanese, however, you will be stuck outside of Japan for the majority of your studies. What do you do then? The trick is to surround yourself with the Japanese language as much as you can in a way that fits your schedule and other obligations. This means that you should take the following ideas and apply them to your own situation, or use them as inspiration to come up with your own. You can, of course, also do these things when you're in Japan, but I would prioritize social interaction, especially if you only get to stay short term. The key to achieving immersion is to get started the right way. If you start your day doing things that don't help with your Japanese learning, then it's all too easy to get sucked up into doing something else. If you check social media or watch the news first thing in the morning, chances are you'll continue down that path. Instead, aim to start your day working on your Japanese immediately. You could do some flashcards right after you get up, for example, or read a piece of text out loud. Listen to Japanese audio while brushing your teeth and getting ready. You can continue doing this while eating breakfast, or you can watch a Japanese TV series or anime if you like. I used to do this back when I was at university. Whenever I would eat alone, I would make sure to watch some Japanese content. The early part of the day is great for writing, as you won't be interrupted as much as later on. Writing is a really underrated way of learning, so I recommend that you do at least a little bit of it early in the morning. Get up early if you have to. Reading is also something you can do in the morning, but this is pretty easy to do wherever you are. That's why I recommend always having reading material in Japanese accessible on your phone, computer, or tablet, or whatever else you might use throughout the day. Physical books are great as well, but you need to carry them around. You could, for example, read physical books when you're home and use your phone for reading when you're out. Make use of small pockets of time that you have throughout the day. Never spend waiting time just waiting. Instead, do some activity related to learning Japanese. Go through flashcards on your phone using Anki, for example, or read a little bit. It doesn't matter if it's a textbook, manga, an article, or whatever.
I want to read my book.
It's also better to reread something you've gone over many times before rather than doing nothing, so don't think you always need to have new material available. Another tactic I like to use is to have another event be the trigger to do something productive. If you make yourself read a paragraph in Japanese or go through a few flashcards before you do something else, then this will quickly add up. You can also make yourself do the same thing each time you go to the bathroom, for example. It won't really take that much time out of your day, but these small pockets of work quickly add up. When it comes to trying to be as immersed in the Japanese language as possible, listening deserves a special mention. The great thing about listening to Japanese is that you can do it wherever you are, as it doesn't require much brain power, so you can do it while doing a lot of other things. If you do the dishes, laundry, cleaning, grocery shopping, or any other activity that you can do pretty much automatically, then you can listen as well. This includes brushing your teeth and getting ready in the morning. To get the most out of listening, be sure to actively try to understand and engage with what you're listening to. It's not much help if it just becomes background noise, although that's still probably better than doing nothing, as you might absorb some of the language. One simple way to engage actively is to try to repeat out loud what the speaker is saying. It might not always be possible to complete a full sentence, but it makes it a lot easier to concentrate on what you're listening to. You might not always be able to speak out loud, however, but if you can't, it helps to just mouth the words instead. You don't have to do this all the time, of course, but try to focus on what you're listening to as much as possible. You can also watch Japanese TV series, movies, or anime with the subtitles either turned off or changed to Japanese. Having Japanese subtitles will make it easier to understand while not giving you a way out like English subtitles do. Speaking Japanese is also an important part, as you need to both be able to understand what is being said to you as well as being able to produce language yourself. If you're in Japan, this is much easier, of course, but it's not impossible if you're outside of Japan either. You can join italki or create a speaking group over Zoom, for example. There are also groups where people meet to speak Japanese. If there isn't one near you, you could always create one yourself. You can also practice speaking with other non-native speakers as well. These are just some ideas to get you started. Experiment and see what works for you and come up with ideas of your own. The more you manage to make learning Japanese a part of your life, the easier it will be to accumulate the practice time necessary to become good at the language. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell button, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Never give up!